Okay, if we don't have, I believe been hearing of ISQM, so we're prepared for this aspect of the question. Okay, so let's go to the last part of the question, or the last section, which is section C. You are required to choose 2 out of 3 questions. And would look practically at question 5. Question 5. So question 5 reads, you are an audit senior at Adeyemi and Partners, Chartered Accountants. Your audit team is currently working on the statutory audit of Savory Bites Ltd, a company involved in importing and selling gourmet Spanish food products across Nigeria. The audit is for the year ended 31st December 2024. During the course of the audit, several professional ethical issues have arisen. A. The audit manager, Mr. Johnson, has a close friendship with the CFO of Savory Bites Ltd. They attend social events together, and the CFO recently paid for Mr. Johnson's hotel stay during a holiday in Spain. B. Savory Bites Ltd has offered your firm a lucrative contract to design and implement a new inventory control system, across its retail outlets. The contract is worth over 10 million and will be handled by your firm's consultancy arm. C. During the audit, you discovered that a significant portion of cash takings from one of the retail outlets was not banked, but was instead used by the outlet manager to pay some supplies in cash. These payments were not properly recorded in the company's accounting system. D. The audit manager is under pressure from the client to sign up the audit report early so they can present the financial statements to a prospective investor. However, several audit procedures, including the review of legal expenses and inventory valuation, has not yet been completed. Required. A. Identify the ethical threats present in this case with reference to the IFAC Code of Ethics. 3 marks. B. What actions should Adeyemi and Partners take in response to the identified ethical issues? 4 marks. C. What ethical principles of the IFAC Code are at risk of being breached in this case? Explain. 4 marks. D. What steps should an audit firm take to prevent ethical conflicts and ensure compliance with professional standards? 4 marks. So we have the first 15-mark question here presented to us. Okay, so the question is a classic test of the IFAC Code of Ethics, which guides the ICAN Code of Ethics as well. And it focuses on identifying threats, the affected fundamental principles, and the necessary safeguards an audit firm must implement. So generally, the question, if you observe, the first observation from me is an ethical focus. Ethical focus. So the scenario is primarily an ethical case study, if you observe, with elements of audit procedure, speaking to incomplete procedures, and unrecorded cash payments. So it directly tests the 5 threats and the 5 principles. That's what this question tests. Number 2 observation is the comprehensive threats. You see that the case covers 4 of the 5 threats, speaking to familiarity, number 1, close friendship and gift. That one is a familiarity threat. Take note of it. Number 2, self-interest. Talking about the lucrative contract offered. Number 3 is self-review. Auditing a system the firm designed. Remember, they give them contract for the inventory or internal something system. And number 4, intimidation, which is pressure to sign early. So those are the 4 threats, in my opinion. So from the answer now, where is the solution? Okay, so solution 5. Yeah, so it's the same, solution 5. Good. So 4 threats. I think I was correct. So the suggested solution, I think, correctly identifies all relevant threats and proposes appropriate safeguards. And the safeguards, speaking to number 1, removal of staff. Number 2, declining the contract. And number 3, firmly resisting pressure to provide the report before time or before completion. And you see the solution also correctly lists the 3 most critical principles at risk. And the principles at risk are: number 1, integrity; number 2, objectivity; and number 3, professional competence and due care. Very important. Okay, so how do we write the answers? You look at the solution, but you have to be technical in your answering. So the A part is to identify. So we are not to identify and explain now. So identify, only 3 marks. So the prompt is 1. So in identification, we need to, in thinking of what to write, identify the specific threat of each scenario. Number 1 is familiarity threat. Identify that the close friendship and significant gift, which was the paid holiday to Spain, is a familiarity threat. Number 2 is self-interested. The lucrative 10 million, is it naira or dollar million, $10 million or naira consultancy contract is a self-interest threat. And number 3, self-review threat. Designing an internal control system that the firm will later audit is self-review threat. I think it was one of us that said auditing yourself. I think it was Samuel or Keller that said that, and that word resonated with me. You cannot audit yourself. So that's a self-review threat. And number 4 is intimidation threat, which is the pressure from the client to sign the report early before completion. So how do you write that? Very simple. Concisely name the threat and briefly link it to the relevant fact from the case. Simple, just like in 2 lines. It's just 3 marks. So name the threat, then briefly link the relevant fact from the case. Very simple. 1 line, 2 line will solve that. So you don't waste your time on a 3-mark question. Okay, so the examiner has provided that on the screen, and that should suffice. Then why is it showing D first? Maybe typo error. Okay, so the second part of the question is, what actions should Adeyemi and Partners take in response to the identified ethical issues? What actions should they take? All right, so in responding to this kind of question on the actions to take, we have 4 marks: actions in response to the ethical issues. So for a 4-mark question, in writing, you need to provide specific safeguards to eliminate or reduce the threats to an acceptable level. So provide specific safeguards to eliminate. It's not possible to eliminate threats. You can only reduce them to an acceptable level. So number 1 is the familiarity, and that's to remove Mr. Johnson from the engagement. That's just the safeguard. He cannot remain in the engagement because number 1, he has close friendship with the client and also got paid holiday to Spain. So remove him from the engagement. Number 2, self-interest and the self-review issue. The safeguard is to decline the consultancy contract while acting as auditor. Yes, cannot audit yourself, so they need to decline the contract. Number 3 is intimidation. They need to refuse to sign until all procedures are complete or completed. And they need to communicate that decision to those charged with governance. That is very important. And how do you write that? Group the threats and provide definitive professional responses based on the safeguards. Very simple in answering such a question. All right, so go through the answers and practice with it, please. And for the C part, the ethical principles at risk is 4 marks. So what do you write? The 3 most affected principles are number 1, objectivity, which was impaired by gifts and relationships, the trip to Spain and all that. So objectivity has been impaired already. So another ethical principle at risk is integrity, which has been compromised by yielding to pressure or accepting bribes, gifts. Integrity has been compromised. And the next principle, that has been compromised is the professional competence and due care, which was breached by signing an incomplete report if they yielded to. So that's what to write around the ethical principles at risk. And how do you write that? You need to name the principle and briefly explain how the scenario breaches it. So for example, objectivity is at risk. You can write around that because the friendship and gift may lead the auditor to not challenge the CFO's judgment, something like that. That should provide credence and clarity to your thoughts. Okay, so that's how to write that. And you should provide context through the other objectivity that in your mind or in your thoughts has been compromised or at risk. At risk. All right. And the last part of the question, which is the speak or ask us on the steps to prevent ethical conflicts, and that is 4 marks. So what do you write around this D part? Number one, you need to focus on the firm's wide quality management procedure and also the policies. You see that ISQM 1 should be brought to bear here. ISQM 1 principles, which is designed to preempt ethical failures. And this includes independence declarations, rotation of staff, strong internal policies, and whistleblowing mechanisms. So how do you write that? List the systemic or systematic firm level safeguards that proactively ensures ethical compliance. Don't forget, the new quality management system is supposed to help firms be more proactive, not reactive. And they need to ensure ethical compliance rather than reactive steps once a breach has occurred. So that's how to provide thoughts around this last session, number D, part of the question. So how do you earn the marks? As usual, try to always use the code or the professional terminology that will help you. Let it resonate with the examiner. Try to impress the examiner with good terminology. Always use the official IFAC or ICAN code language around familiarity threat, self-review threat, objectivity, professional competence, safeguards, those charged with governance kind of terms. And that shouldn't be a problem at this point. I believe a lot of us will provide good points around this. Secondly, another strategy to earn the marks is implementable safeguards. Implementable safeguards. When asked for action or an action plan, provide concrete professional responses around, for example, rotate the audit manager, something like that is a clear safeguard. Decline the engagement, communicate with those charged with governance. So those are implementable safeguards that could be provided or recommended. And try to connect the dots, that is cross the I's, cross the T's and dot the I's. So ensure every threat is correctly matched to its appropriate principle and also the necessary safeguard. You need to connect the dots. So ensure every threat, like I said, is correctly matched to its appropriate principle and the necessary safeguard. Okay, so let's go back to the marks. For part A, we have 3 marks. So ensure at least 3 distinct threats are identified and correctly linked to the case. 3 distinct threats. So we have threats around self-interest, which is paid holiday, familiarity, which is pressure, and intimidation, which is to sign the report early. So at least 3 distinct threats identified and correctly linked to the case will earn you that 3 marks. Then for the part B, 4 marks. Excuse me. Excuse me. So for the 4 marks, the part B, the primary required actions are very clear, they are crystal clear. Remove or rotate Mr. Johnson. Simple. Remove him or rotate him to another job, but not that engagement. Number 2 is the action to take by the firm is to refuse or decline the consultancy contract. Very clear. And number 3 is firmly resist the pressure to sign the report early with communication to the client's governance or management team on the reason why, which includes we have not completed the job, so we cannot sign. Very key. So that's important for the B aspect. And for the C aspect, which is 4 marks, you need to focus on the 3 top principles. Number 1, objectivity, which is the bias that has been breached due to relationship and money involved. Number 2 is integrity, which is lack of straightforwardness that was replayed in that scenario. And number 3 is professional competence due care, which speaks to incomplete audit procedures and the pressure to sign the report. And part D, which is also 4 marks, the core preventive steps based on ISQM 1 is Written independence policies. ISQMN is clear on that. Policies and declarations, which are mandatory checks for the audit firm. Another core preventive step is rotation of senior personnel. Senior personnel should be rotated across several engagements, and also separation of services, ensuring that non-audit teams do not influence audits. And also training of resources. Human should be enhanced. Training of staff to be adequately qualified to carry out these jobs are very key. Okay, so let's go to preconcepts and principles tested and how to study around a question like this. So in studying and revising, you need to look at the fundamental ethical principles around the IFAC Code. The core concepts are the 5 principles, and by now we don't have issues with this, I believe. Integrity, objectivity, professional competence and due care, confidentiality, and professional behavior. Number 2 is threats to independence. That's another concept. The case tests 4 of the 5 threats we've seen. Speaking to familiarity, self-interest, self-review, and intimidation. The principle is that independence is required to actually maintain objectivity. Number 3 is the safeguard concept. The principle is that for every threat, the auditor must implement safeguards that reduce the threat to an acceptable level. Even though it can be eliminated, but then reduce it to an acceptable level. Safeguards can be firm-wide, it can be engagement-specific, or required by regulation. Another concept that was tested was audit evidence. Most of these questions always have audit evidence injected. Audit evidence and due care around, I think ISA 200. The pressure to sign early tests. The pressure to sign early tests the concept that the auditor must gather sufficient appropriate audit evidence before forming an opinion. So the audit evidence and due care based on ISA 200 was tested here. And the auditor must always remember that sufficient appropriate audit evidence must be gathered before forming an opinion. And to sign prematurely actually breaches due care. So take note of that. So as you are studying, you must practice identifying the IFAC principles and threats from various scenarios and try to memorize the catalog of common safeguards that could be provided appropriately under such conditions. Okay, so from the current AAA study text, AAAF study text, what was tested? Which areas were tested? So Chapter 3, very importantly, was tested, professional and ethical issues. Speaking to the fundamental principles around objectivity, integrity, independence, confidentiality, and conflicts of interest, and also corporate financial advice around Chapter 3. And Chapter 15 was implicitly tested. There are some ethical issues around Chapter 15. We'll come to that on current issues. So those 2 chapters were Chapter 3, but is mostly explicitly tested in this main question 5. And that current issues I spoke about was also tested. All right, so that's it about question 5. In my opinion, it's a simple question. I don't know for others. I think it's a simple question. It shouldn't give us problem. If I were to write this, maybe I'll score 13. I think so. All right, so any questions? Any observations? Any contributions to this second question or question 5? It's quite a simple question. Any questions? We are quiet today. What's happening? These 2 questions, are they very simple? I think they are very simple. I think maybe we've gone through the documents. We've been practicing around this. Nobody has shared any thoughts around this. No questions, no contributions so far?
They are sinking, sir.
Okay. Thank you, Sammy, for that feedback. If it's really sinking, then it's fine. All right, that's good. I'm glad it's sinking. So please permit us to go on break.